Welcome, everybody. My name is Michelle Finizio. I am the Chief Revenue Officer of Founder Made, and I work directly with our brand and resource partner community to connect them with the resources they need and making these sessions incredibly fun and special for me. Also, a couple minutes before I got to hang out with Chris and some members of his team. So this session is going to be fun. Chris is an awesome guy and is just going to be filling this whole hour with a ton of tidbits that you can take to run and use within your business. For those Power Hour and Summit regulars out there, welcome back. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, thank you for being here. Founder Made's mission is to help best in class brands build through direct access to distribution, financing, media, and rockstar resource partners like Marketer Hire. Think of these as a workshop where you can ask your hardest questions and get them answered directly from the top experts in the industry. So, as a quick pro tip, to maximize your experience, take advantage of the chat feature on the bottom of the screen to introduce yourself. We'd love to know who you are, what you're building, why you're here, what questions you have around marketing, what questions you have in general. Even if it's not specific to this session, we have tons of great sessions and we look at every one of those questions. At the end of this session, also, you have the opportunity to get contact information for Chris, for our team. So definitely get in touch. We're going to wait about another minute here to really get started. For those that love these power hours, you can sign up for all of our power hours and we'll be in touch notifying you about each upcoming session in the weeks coming. We have ones with Clearbank, we do them with brands. Today we'll also be pulling in a D2C brand that Chris has the unique pleasure of working with. So now that we're at 1:02, let's go ahead and get started. Today's Power Hour will feature Marketer Hire CEO Chris Toy for a 60-minute deep dive into how you can optimize your marketing team and set yourself up for success in 2021. We'll kick off the conversation with a look into the ever-evolving world of marketing and how the rapid changes and lack of adaptation have led to marketing in the traditional sense being broken, and then get into the solutions that exist. In this new normal, marketers are expected to know every discipline as an expert, but that doesn't really work anymore. And though we all want to and try to do it all, that can be a fatal mistake that causes us to miss growth opportunities. So, how do we solve for this and thrive in the new normal? That's what we're going to hear from today with Chris. Chris's leadership advice, insights into the latest, most effective marketing trends, and tactics for hiring talent to ensure growth for your business, with key questions to include tongue twister. Key questions to include how marketing went from generalist to specialist and how you need to adapt, how businesses should think about staffing their marketing team in this new normal, how should a small business versus medium business staff their marketing team, and a ton more. Chris, I know you're somewhere out there, so let's see your face. Okay, there you go. We're off mute. We're ready to go. No one's wearing cat faces by accident. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, good to be here.
How you doing? Are you ready for this?
Good, I am. I am. It's gonna be a very fast hour, I think.
Sweet, it is. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Obviously, a lot has changed in the world of marketing over the past few years, and it seems to be evolving every month. Have the hiring practices and businesses adapted?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that they're still figuring it out. For us, we're serving, Fortune 500 companies the same week that we're serving billion-dollar tech companies. The same week we're serving high-growth D2C brands. The same week we're serving, small businesses and local businesses. And I think a lot of people would be surprised at how similar their questions are, how similar their hiring challenges are. Because, part of why I kind of talk about marketing being broken is just because it's all been broken in the same way for everybody, which is digital and technology and the internet has changed marketing and advertising and how that industry exists entirely in a way that most other industries have really been, not been touched. I mean, they've been affected and generally improved by having the internet and tech, but marketing advertising is the one where just like, all right, like we just don't do the job anywhere resembling how we used to do it, 10 years ago, let alone 5 years ago. And so that just kind of like throwing a lot of people for a loop. So, I think where almost everybody is, there used to be this point of in kind of early digital where people were reluctant to, especially the bigger businesses were kind of like, is this for real? Generally, they weren't reluctant to adopt it. They were just kind of figuring out how to adopt it because for a lot of larger businesses, they've already made their plans set out for even, a year, let alone 6 months. And so shifting that plan was not easy. But by now, everyone realizes that digital is, core to marketing. It basically is marketing now and advertising now. And they've realized that it is more complicated than doing it yourself if you're a smaller business. And if you're a larger business, have realized that it is a highly skilled job that you can't kind of phone in or ignore channels wise. We have a lot of very large B2B companies who are coming to us trying to explore TikTok. That the speed of that is unlike, other new channels like Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram took them years, even now, to think about. But a lot of them are like, look, we know the drill. Like, this isn't going anywhere. I'm a giant B2B company, but I have to figure out TikTok. Like that's different. And so, what they're leading to now is, well, how do we honestly staff for it? Like, how do I get, whether it's an agency, in-house, something like Market Hire, how do I make sure that I have the people who can help me figure this out, let alone do the work? That's kind of what we're seeing the scramble for all kinds of businesses.
And not, you didn't even mention Clubhouse, because that's a whole other thing, and there's so much popping up. So how are you seeing team structures adapt?
So, I think that there was a phase maybe a few years ago where, and even still now, very commonly, especially for, retail or D2C brands, where they were sort of just staffing mostly with, particular channel experts. So obviously, hey, I just need someone who can run Facebook ads. Like, maybe there's just like a pure acquisition channel, because generally the playbook for digital marketing for consumer brands is fairly similar. And so it's, okay, I need someone to run Facebook ads, and I need someone to probably run Google ads as well. And that was kind of a phase where that was it, customer acquisition. What we're seeing a lot of now is an increasing desire and understanding that to have a healthy marketing ecosystem, to have a healthy customer acquisition setup, and to get the best ROI, you have to have a rounded marketing ecosystem. So you have to have efficient paid media. You have to have mid and lower funnel work handled by email marketing, maybe some community work. And then you have to have someone paying attention to conversions through the middle, with the website. So I think generally we're seeing a lot more. Just for example, a lot more people hiring email marketers than we used to, because they're just realizing that there's all these additional points where you could be losing a potential customer. It's not just about, well, Facebook's so easy and Facebook's the king, so let's just spend on Facebook. It's a much more well-rounded approach for brands of all size, all the way up to sort of the billion-dollar consumer brands and down to early stage. They're all looking to staff complete teams.
You said marketing is broken. Can you explain?
Yeah, so I started 20 years ago in New York at agencies, where it was just kind of bridging the old ways with digital. We were like, whoa, what's this email thing? Like, let's figure that out for marketing and some of the new channels we're building up. And so I kind of lived through it, where there was this transition of, this is interesting, should we do it? Into, okay, we can't ignore it, into, oh my God, like, we don't know what we're doing. Like, what the hell is TikTok? Which is like, a couple months ago. And the broken part of it is that, again, the job and the industry completely changed in how it's operating in just around 10 years, something like that, maybe. Ad spend completely shifted to brand new channels, channels that were seemingly more accessible in the same way, right? Before, if you started a brand over, first of all, you couldn't start a brand over a weekend, but if you did, you couldn't put ads live, certainly, that same afternoon. You can do that all in one day now, right? You can have live advertising for your company. And so, that was great early on, because it just was like, hey, great, we can just do this all ourselves. But as that kind of innovation picked up, and more digital channels were built, it just became more and more complex. But this concept of it being approachable, that anyone can do it, still kind of was lingering, right? And you had a lot of new supply side people, new agencies, new freelancers, often self-taught very quickly, kind of just flooding the market with lower cost alternatives. And then now you just have this whole segment that's just like, okay, like what is this and who's actually good at it? How much should I be paying for it? How do I trust anybody? And no one's really put that back together, where kind of now we have, again, so many agencies, so many options, so many channels. It can feel very confusing and very scary. And so that's kind of what I mean by it's broken. It was completely disrupted by a complete change in how marketing and advertising was executed. But there hasn't really been a sensical putting back together of what it all means. So you've got a demand side for marketing, brands and clients who are like, okay, I get that this is very complicated now, but what do I do about it? And then you've got a supply side, which used to be very structured, a lot of just like agencies who did things the same way. Now it's like the wild, wild west on the supply side of like, what makes a great marketer? Like, what do they even do? What is a job entitled? If I take a growth marketer, what's a growth hacker? What's a Facebook ad specialist? Can a Facebook ad specialist also run my Google ads? Like all these things on the supply side, there's a lot of people, because again, it's been made kind of lower barrier to entry to be a supply side person, kind of jumping in and saying, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, even when often they probably shouldn't be saying that. And so you just kind of have this very, very awkward middle ground where there's a lack of trust. And it's honestly, oftentimes feels kind of used car salesman like in the interaction, where you're like, I've been burned before, or I've heard someone getting burned before. How do I trust you? So that trust is really what's kind of broken the industry. And then again, like one more thing, just to kind of emphasize, if Facebook and Google are more than just tech products, they're two of the biggest businesses in the world because of their ad products, right? Because they figured out how to sell tiny ads. And so you've got the biggest tech companies in the world and their disruption and what they've blown up in terms of like our society and content and advertising and data and all these things. All of that stuff is what marketers have to figure out, right? And so when you say like, okay, what's an industry that's been broken? It's just been completely turned upside down by innovation and technology. And then you're like, well, who can help me figure out Facebook's algorithm? One of the most powerful things that have ever been invented. I just want someone to casually like figure out how to help my brand, navigate that. Like that's not an easy thing. But again, that kind of optics and information asymmetry is causing a lot of trust issues. And so that to me is why it's broken.
I mean, the word broken, it can be a little scary to hear, right? And so I know we're going to get into solutions, but you touched on it specifically. Why should businesses and marketing teams be concerned, and what specifically should they be concerned about?
Yeah, it's really about not, you can't believe that because it seems to be, we talk about, not to make it about market hire, but internally we talk about like, how do we make marketing accessible, right? And what's loaded in there is that it has to be trusted marketing, has to be good marketing, right? But marketing accessible. I think what's happened is that, for companies, how do they approach this? You have to approach it like this is a very skilled profession. There's a very skilled thing, and that people do exist who can do this thing really well. It's not this whole like art and science thing. Oh, I just gotta find someone's good. It's a job, right? And you can find a great plumber, you can find a great dentist, you can find a great lawyer, you can find a great marketer. Like it's a thing that can be pinpointed and can exist. It's not nebulous. And that's kind of, again, what we see a lot of is there's this idea that it's this mythical thing that you can't put your finger on. Like these are technical jobs now. Most of the marketing jobs, digital marketing jobs now, are technical professions. They are not creative based. They're not art and science. It's a technical profession that requires judgment call like anything else, but it's a technical profession. And so someone can be, you kind of define the parameters of what makes someone good at it in a way that it's maybe hard to define, what makes a great artist, like kind of hard to define that. But you can actually define what makes a great email marketer, growth marketer, paid Facebook marketer, paid Google marketer, affiliate marketer, right? You can actually define those things. And so I would encourage anyone who's trying to staff a team or trying to figure that out to start with that assumption, which we often see is not the assumption. Hey, this is a thing that someone can do well. Do I understand what makes an expert in this? Because if I don't understand what it is, if you don't understand what it is, how do you expect to be able to hire it? And so, there's an education path that you can go on to figure that out. Or again, what we see a lot of is you can hire a team lead, be it a CMO or a growth marketer, someone who already knows, and they can help you navigate and figure out how to staff that team, how to structure that team, when to hire who, and how much of them. But I think starting with that, like, does someone at your company know, have marketing expertise and know what makes a good marketer for certain roles versus a bad marketer in certain roles? If the answer to that is no, you have to find that person or take months to try and learn it yourself with good advisors. But that's a lot harder.
And this seems like a good segue into another section, right? We're covering the new normal for marketing operations, which is great because I think it's a two-sided education path too, right? Who the person on the hiring side, and setting that right expectation. And sometimes there's the expectation that marketer should know everything and be an expert in everything.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you see that a lot. So can you tell us what kind of challenges you're seeing around just that process of
Yeah. The person who knows everything is who understands the strategy behind everything is possible. So, CMOs, like, take me, like, I know enough about almost every channel, being senior enough to put together a plan, to know who to hire, to know how to budget for it, to know what success looks like, to achieve business goals. I can't execute any of it, right? If you're like, oh, so you can also just like run the ads and set up whatever in Klaviyo, I'm like, no, like, these hands have done nothing for a very long time. So sadly, no. Right. And so that extra level, which I get, which is, oh, can I just get someone who just knows it all and does all of it? Like, it sounds crazy to say out loud because it is crazy. And if someone says yes on the supply side, as us marketers do to ourselves all the time, if you say yes to it because you want the business, like, that's what creates a lot of this distrust, because suddenly the client, the hirer, or whatever it may be, is like, well, this is not going well, because you've asked someone to do an impossible job. And there's this concept that maybe it's cheaper, or it takes less time. Again, like, unless they have more hands, like 10 hours of one person doing this job is the same as having 10 people splitting it up who actually know what they're doing. Like, there's, time and space still is a restrictor to all of us. And so, what ultimately, and not to plug my business, but it is why we launched it, is why we came up with it. The issue is like, well, okay, so if you're telling me that I should hire experts for everything and that I don't need to pay a ton of money, and I should be able to kind of move my team around according to what my business needs, and sudden changes in marketing trends, because digital trends change faster than any other trends, right? Suddenly a shift in someone's algorithm and everything changes, right? Well, how do I do that, right? And the incumbent has been the agency, but the agency has a lot of the same problems, which we can go into. We can kind of skip. I think most people know, they're either too expensive or just kind of trading usually on a business model that requires not necessarily the best people, but just a business model that's high margin. And I ran my own agency and worked at agencies for most of my career, so they definitely do good work. There are a lot of good agencies, but it has the same issue of kind of trust there. So I think kind of peeling through it, you just want to be able to have a team. That trust part is key. Just getting that first person on your team who can help you make decisions. This is assuming that you don't have that skill set yourself, but you have to have that expert who can help you navigate this, or else you're just really likely going to guess wrong. And it's just not something that has to happen. You don't have to guess at it. It can be a thing that you just have a standard playbook. Like, whenever I talk to e-com brands or D2C brands, the earlier ones, but even the later stage ones, like, it's like logistics. Like, no part of you running your business is gonna come back to being like, hey, I just figured out how to ship everything out of my house, and I shipped it out of my house until I hit $100 million in revenue. Like, that's probably not what's going to happen. Like that out of your house shipping thing is like through the very early part of your business, and then you've got to go do what everyone else does, right? You've got to go find a 3PL and et cetera, et cetera. And that's the thing for marketing. Like, there's this very brief period where maybe you can get away with just like learning a few things and being scrappy, but very quickly there's a point where you're like, okay, now just do it professionally, right? And if you don't know exactly when that is or what that looks like, then you're probably a company that also lacks the experience internally that you really need. Again, whether it's through advisors or hires, and you're gonna guess wrong. We're gonna wait too long. You're gonna miss the point. But you have to get that intelligence, into your company.
I mean, what are some of the opportunities you're seeing people miss as a result of one, either trying to do it all themselves or mistiming that?
Yeah. So a couple of things. The two big ones are, one, taking false positives or false negatives from your own marketing work. So, there'll be folks who either are doing it themselves. One of the big things that we get asked for is audits. Okay. Hey, can you just audit what's going on with my marketing right now? I want to hire so-and-so to audit my marketing, maybe one channel, maybe everything. But what's very common is taking the wrong lessons from marketing. So you might say, hey, I've tried, maybe you're running a brand, and that brand is, you're in a category that should lend itself to a lot of organic social media or something. And maybe it's like seasonal organic social media. Like, oh, that makes sense for your product. And then we'll hear, you'll see me, oh, well, I tried that. It doesn't work for us. Okay, well, who tried it? Oh yeah, I just did it. Okay, well, you have no experience. You probably did it wrong / badly / not enough, and so that doesn't count. Like, it just doesn't count. You can't dismiss the channel because you went in, or a thing because you tried it, were bad at it. The conclusion is not, well, that thing sucks. The conclusion is like, well, you got to do it again with someone who's actually good at it, because the strategy makes sense, that would be something that would work for your company. But we see a lot of that where they tried something. Hey, we think, we still even see, we think Facebook ads don't work for us. Like, I don't know, that's the right conclusion. You may need to rethink kind of what success and failure is there. So that's one, is trying marketing with people who are not experts at it, and then deciding that it doesn't work. That doesn't make sense. It's a false test. You have to do it again. The other one is kind of often when they have some traction, right, coming from somewhere, maybe a single channel is working for them, or maybe just word of mouth, it's growing. Maybe they got a wholesale deal. Kind of not understanding how to size up what is stage appropriate for your business. So, an example would be a company that maybe has had success with retail sales and wholesale sales, and the website's just atrocious. They're like not even collecting email addresses, their checkouts in weird places, and oh yeah, well, most of our business is over here. Like, we're not really driving a lot D2C, it's over here. Okay, well, that's like free money, right? That's a small investment to get that, just to not be embarrassing. To set up, an email collection pop-up and a welcome series, that's automated. When you collect that email, that's like a one-time few hours of someone's time to set that up for you, and you can just like leave it. You don't have to keep pushing it. You don't have to keep spending on it. It's like a one-time, relatively small investment, and it's like free money, right? Everything you do on the wholesale side is now multiplied by X% because your website will actually convert a little bit. Like, that kind of thing, and happens a lot, where they don't know how to think it through to realize how low the low-hanging fruit is in some other channels. Or maybe they're not spending a little bit of money on branded terms on paid search to either defend their own brand or to collect some of what's coming through organically and just convert it quickly. They don't do that either. So that's what we see, a lot of very easy opportunities, because to someone who doesn't know marketing, they may not know that those are easy. They may not know that those are one-time investments or very high ROI investments, and so they just leave it, right? But if you're running a brand, especially a new brand, but also a high growth brand, 2 or 3% extra here or there makes a big difference. So that's an easy one. And then even on the D2C brands, they'll be the same thing. They'll often, email's a good one. Like I mentioned, it's kind of coming up really, kind of one of the faster growing segments where these companies will, there'll be a lot of D2C brands that have sizable email lists and, barely put any investment into email marketing. They're kind of just like kicking out promos now and then, like totally unnecessary. You could just a little bit of investment, very high ROI investment, and like that's good to go. So just a lot of stuff there where if you don't realize it, you don't realize how much money, easy money you're leaving on the table.
And there's a really two-pronged issue, right? It's not knowing when to hire, and then sometimes also cultural dynamics or interpersonal dynamics around making that leap because you want to trust the person who's already in-house. So what's your recommendation around how to navigate when to hire externally and work,
Yeah. I mean, if I just go by the market and what we've seen success with, I mean, virtually day zero, especially if you're a D2C brand, day zero, because it's all about the right amount. We'll talk internally for us, for example, just like it's the right amount of the right marketer right now, right? If you can get those three things together, if it was possible to get those three things, you could just hit a button, turn it on, turn off, turn on, turn off. If it goes really well, leave it on. If you decide to do something different for a month, leave it off. If you could do that, I think most companies would be like, oh, well, if I knew it was the right person and I could get an amount that fit my budget and I didn't have to go on like a 4-month journey looking for them, of course I would do it right now. So then it's kind of about answering that question, which is a little bit dependent on the founder or the business to say, okay, well, what is your network like? What is your ability to find the right marketer like? What is your ability to have folks in your network and world who you can lean on? And so it kind of varies, because if you are completely disconnected from that world, it can be hard for sure. But it's not it's not like you can't overcome it. You just need to do a little bit more work, or lean on a service like us or a number of others that are out there.
That makes total sense. I mean, where do you see the marketing ops team kind of evolving in the future in terms of the types of hires? I mean, there are so many platforms like TikTok that are coming out. So let's just get your perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I think, one, just like thinking of it as operations in general. I mean, the size of the company, matters, where marketing operations will generally fall under the lead marketer, depending on how big you are. But the bigger companies, will likely have someone dedicated with that title, for example, in kind of next couple of years, because once you realize the gains you can make, especially as a consumer brand, where when there's again a set playbook, right? We can all rattle off what we think 90% of consumer brands are doing with their marketing. We can probably all guess pretty well. But the amount of different channels, the shifts back and forth, like how you're staffing, like all that stuff, it is a point of leverage to be able to be constantly thinking about that and constantly changing it. And so I think, it's less about like, what is the team going to look like in 2021 or the end of 2021 or 2022? It's more about marketing operations being a thing that you are meaningfully thinking about, and that you realize that the perfect team is actually a team that is constantly changing based on what you need. So you have your product is launching in a bunch of Whole Foods. Now you suddenly would love to have a local marketing initiative. Maybe you're going to be on Shark Tank. You need something around PR and communications. Maybe Facebook CPMs are starting to kind of flatten out for you. You need to suddenly look at other channels, not Google, not Facebook, and explore. Maybe a friend of yours who runs another brand told you that ambassador and affiliate programs worked really well for them. How fast can you just go pow and get that spun up in the amount that you need it, and then get rid of it when you don't? And when I say get rid of it when you don't, that's really important too, because a lot of the reasons why people don't staff for this stuff or try and just give it to whoever's already working there, is just around the pain of hiring and firing, or et cetera, or not, or contractors can be painful. But you want to do it. You want to be able to go up and down. That's the ideal thing for almost any business. And so I think with marketing operations, like that's really what it is. It's a concept to be good at, but it's someone as well who's dedicated to figuring out how to structure your marketing team and how you work and how your marketing is conducted at your company for maximum agility, so that you now as a business can point marketing as a tool and say, okay, like I need you to be these 10 things this month, but I need these 4 things next week, and I need you to be these 20 things next month. To actually be able to do that with experts at those things is the next point of leverage, versus right now, you kind of just dump it on your existing team or you skip it, right? And neither of those two are particularly good answers. So I think flexibility and agility is really what team structure is going to be like. So there, it's almost like there is no standard team now. There's just a focal point on realizing that for anyone doing digital marketing, the distance between your marketing and your product and your business has to be almost zero, right? And as any of them shift, they affect all the others. And so you really have to be able to be agile with your marketing team.
I mean, super interesting. Are you finding that a lot of companies are, to the earlier point, right? There's that cultural dynamic or the interpersonal dynamic. So in a sense, having an outsourced person so that you can slide in a new person that has the unique skill set that isn't necessarily in-house entirely, and there's not necessarily all the layers that might go into needing to, swap from, to use a military reference, like swap from the cannon to the tank, right? You need to be able to do that seamlessly, because you're, in a sense, in battle, you're in market, right? So are you seeing a lot more of that, where people are just function?
We started in early 2019, thinking about the future of work, and obviously with COVID, a lot of accelerants, right? And so we always took the stance, and I always took the stance, just having run distributed companies before, that culture and feeling like we are all a team and work well together, and it's just a freelancer, it's a contractor, they're not really part of our team, that's your choice as a person who chooses to run your company a certain way, chooses to treat contractors differently, the teammates. And that's something that I learned from my early days in the agency world. I don't think people realize at agencies, but at many companies, of all normal companies that are have been around for a long time, how many of their team are independent contractors, like full-time, part-time, project basis, whatever. I didn't realize until we lost our first few clients at my first agency, and a lot of people got let go, unfortunately, and a lot of them were like, yeah, I was just a contractor anyway. And I was like, oh, you never worked here? No, I worked here. I worked here as a contractor for 4 years, right? And I was like, well, okay, I guess you worked here, because we got coffee, and I couldn't tell that you didn't work here. You weren't wearing some other agency shirt or anything. It wasn't weird. And so I think what we've all learned in the last year, which we always thought would be the case, and used to have to kind of push our clients to understand, our customers to understand, but now everyone in the world is realizing it, is if someone not only is not the same taxation designation that I am with you, you wouldn't even know if we sat next to each other. Right? I'm a 1099, you're a W-2, no one knows. But we don't even need to be in the same office. We don't even see each other anymore, right? So
now, right? I mean, we're not in the same office with any,
So. Who cares? You are part-time. I won't even know. I don't even see you. We don't get coffee anymore. I don't know. I'll see you tomorrow. Sounds great. So a lot of that has changed now, and I think people are realizing, have realized, right? I mean, we're way over the line now, that these were always factors under our control. That whether it was an agency, a freelancer, in-house, you can choose how to have your work interaction be. It can be just like they're part of your team. You can treat them like they're weird. You can put them in your Slack in their own little channel. You can add them to all the channels, right? That's up to you, right? You can run your culture how you want. And I think that always was the case, even when we were getting together in an office. People just didn't really think about it. And then so now, in this environment, certainly people are realizing that more and are now, I think, much more open to this idea that, you know, I don't really need the coffee breaks. Like I just need someone who's really good at the job, who can do the work, who's professional,
Mhm.
and then great, you know, help me do the work and run my business. And I don't really care if you're in-house, right? Again, the idea that if you're in-house, like you'll never leave me. Like now you're mine. Like now you're loyal to me forever. Like that was never true either. It's always been a very kind of, you know, it's kind of something we tell ourselves, right? Like full-time employees leave all the time,
True.
right? Full-time employees are busy and get distracted all the time. Like it's just it's always been an optics thing, I think. But people are now kind of broken that down, and on the supply side too. A lot of great marketers, you know, we have a very large percentage of our marketers have day jobs, and you know, and have freelancing for the first time on our platform, because they're like, hey, like what's the difference? Like I'm at home, like I'm doing my job, like second monitor, like sounds great, right? You know, and I think that's been really great. And that's really what we're excited about for our supply side, is really helping great talent, you know, either make more money or make their money differently. And, you know, if we do that, and I think, again, for marketing being broken, I think both sides kind of have to make some adjustments to how they see what this relationship is supposed to be, what the work is supposed to be. And then everyone's going to be a lot happier with kind of the results.
Slightly shifting, but building on that, what roles should you have in house, if any? I mean, my
Yeah,
assumption
I mean,
is having
it's less about
them.
in-house to me as sort of like time. Like, you know, you need a certain amount of time. You know, if someone's 40 hours a week on a 6-month contract, like what's the difference between that and in-house? But you know, there's a time where I think if you really, really feel like there's a commitment there, that is someone who you're committed to and want to be a part of your team and business, you know, forever, right? Or for the foreseeable future, and they feel the same way about you. Um, you know, there are sort of like emotional benefits to doing that. You know, it's like being in a committed dating relationship and getting married. Like there is some stuff there, like some stuff where you're like, could we just not break up, or do we have to like do this? Like there's some stuff there that's legal, and other stuff that makes it harder to break up, right? And makes it more painful, and so you feel a little more committed. Getting rid of a W-2 is harder than getting rid of an independent contractor. So there are some things there, but you know, those aren't the reasons that anyone ever gives, right? Like that's, no one's ever like, I want to bring that person in house so that it's like weirder for me to fire them, right? Like that's never what anyone says. They always do it because they think that they're going to get better work, or just like have this person like as long as they want them. And like those things aren't true, right? So you know, if it makes you feel better and to feel more committed, go for it. There are benefits to running a company to having W-2s in some ways, and there are benefits in running a company to having 1099s in some ways. And so it's a business decision for kind of where you are at and how you're running your company. You know, we have Marketer Hire has full-time people. We use contractors. We kind of just decide case by case.
That makes sense. There's a ton of D2C companies that are just at that early stage. What roles should they be prioritizing right now?
Yeah, I mean, most of them probably don't have marketing experience. So, you know, if you're in an early stage, you need a person you trust who knows marketing. So, you know, a CMO with experience with early stage companies, or a growth marketer with experience with early stage companies. Just like a thought partner, someone that you can have this conversation with. You know, we're going to get into questions in a minute. You want someone like me that you can ask these questions to like 20 times a day and just be like, should we do this? Should we do this? How do we budget? How do we think about it? So I would start with, like, if you're very early stage, it's not that expensive to get a light relationship with a marketer, to kind of be able to have, you know, set your intuition basically, and to kind of hear what the playbook is going to be. And then, you know, as you move through the gear, the playbook tends to be the same. We'll kind of ignore organic, right? Because if you're, you know, going door to door to every CrossFit gym and selling some kind of weird shake, like, cool, like do that for sure, always good. You know, I think if we're talking about performance marketing and kind of formal, you know, sort of roles that you might hire for, you know, right out the gate, you're going to want to dabble in paid media, just to kind of warm things up and see how that goes. And you're going to want email marketing, and like that's kind of core. and you got to make sure your website's not weird, so I would have that growth marketer. We still see early stage websites where you go to it and it's like, if your website doesn't look like other websites, like that's a problem. Like you don't want to innovate. You want to be like the only website that has checkout on the left. Like that, don't do that. Like there's no benefit. You're just like fooling yourself. Like just
Right.
make it look like the template and put your product in there as the only variable. And that's way better, because otherwise it's just like, now you're like, well, should I have put it on the left? Like
Right.
put the images upside down. Like, I don't know if that's good. I thought it was cool, but I don't really know. So I would get a growth marketer in there who's got experience doing exactly what you need. So early stage D2C, assuming it's D2C, and then just run the standard playbook. And you want to the key thing too is budgeting. You got to be able to run, it's budget and timing and experts. Like, is someone doing your marketing who has done it before and has proven at being good at it? Then are you setting aside enough budget and time to even yield results that you can take some kind of conclusion from? So if you're like, hey, can I spend like $500 for over like 2 months? Like, you may as well not, right? You may as well just go straight organic and guerrilla and go door to door, because the $500 over 2 months, like, you're not really gonna learn anything. So I think you gotta be realistic to have a budget, of a couple $1,000s over a couple of months. And you do need that time too. You have to build up data, it has to learn, et cetera, et cetera. So you just need to have a commitment to saying, I'm going to invest in marketing. And, I use the term invest, like truly invest. Like, you might lose all of that. Like, no one is owed instant direct sales, right? So I'm going to invest in marketing. I'm going to invest in it in a structured way that is according to best practices for a company like mine. And I'm going to get the data back. And then I'm going to read that data with someone who's an expert in it. And we're going to decide, okay, great, finger in the wind. Where is my business today as far as being able to run the standard playbook for an early stage D2C brand? Like, that's what you want to get to. Again, if you run it yourself and you're like, well, that didn't work, and then you come to me, I'm going to make you do it again. Because I'm going to be like, well, that's probably because you ran it, sadly, right? Like, if I try to build my own shelf from IKEA, like, well, it's crooked. It's probably me, not IKEA, because I'm terrible at this, right? So same thing. So get someone who knows how to do it, invest in it properly, look at the data, and then make your next decision from there.
Awesome. So we've had the unique pleasure and privilege to also bring in one of your clients from Outer. I see him on the line. Jake, are you there? Jake, oh, there you are.
Oh,
Check
nice.
it out. How you doing?
Good afternoon, I should say.
So this is Jake Liu. He's the CEO and founder of a D2C brand called Outer. Jake, thank you so much for being here. Also really like your background. I'm assuming that's virtual, but I don't know. Is it?
It is virtual, and I joke that this is the lowest CPM exercise we have at Outer due to the amount of Zoom meetings we're on a daily basis.
Great. It looks like a place I want to be. Can you tell us about Outer? What do you do? What is it?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here, Michelle and Chris. My name is Jake Liu. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Outer. We are a Santa Monica-based startup. We're building the first authentic brand for outdoor living, and we're starting with the perfect outdoor furniture. In fact, the perfect outdoor sofa in my background. We haven't had a lot of products yet. It is, as durable as your camping gear, as comfortable as your mattress, and is 100% eco-friendly and recyclable. We also are known for our pretty unique, I would say, go-to-market strategy with our neighborhood showroom, which is, we're turning our customers' backyards into our showrooms, and currently in over 600 locations across the country, soon to be hitting 1,000, and we'll be making some exciting announcements soon.
By the way, congratulations. That's huge.
I'll also add that when my wife and I bought our house, my wife said that our Outer sofa was her favorite thing in the house, which bummed me out because I bought a bunch of other stuff too. But she likes the sofa. It's great. Everyone should get one.
Jake, we know you paid him to say that. Just kidding. So I always love being able to bring in a brand where you guys have that working relationship. Jake, can you explain the relationship you have with Chris and the Market to Hire team?
Yeah. So just full transparency, Chris and I had known each other before Chris even started Market to Hire. And when I just first started with Outer, in fact, Chris and his partner Raja were quite instrumental to the formative days of Outer, literally days, because we were thinking about how to launch the company and all of that. So, we are small investors in each other's business, but that's just because how much we love each other's product and services more than anything. Formally, on the Marketer Hire side, I involved my marketing team, our VP of marketing, Corinne. I think it was early last year, right? Or like mid last year, probably around like March, April, right before our truly hyper growth. I think, during a period where we grew about 2000% year over year. And I think that was, largely due to what Market to Hire was able to do for us. They actually helped us identify a super, rock star talent, Savannah. And not only was she really talented, but the culture fit and communication, everything was really on point. It's not like anything before, like working with, just any media agency. Because of that, one-to-one relationship that we do have the talent, right? We're not necessarily talking to Chris or his team on a day-to-day basis, but we do get that relationship with Savannah directly. I don't think it'll probably take us much longer to identify talent like that. And the minuscule kind of, commission that Market to Hire takes as a platform is just, well worth it. Just on kind of like the time and money saved.
That's, by the way, huge. And 2000% is insane growth. And to know that it was, that inflection point where you brought that hire on is awesome. I mean, what was it a certain revenue you got to where you made that decision, or how did you, what was the trigger point?
Yeah, I mean, so there are a few factors, right? I think, I'd be remiss not to address the obvious, which is kind of like the COVID situation last year around March timeframe. Also, that timed up with the outdoor season really well. But but that was also part of the conversation with Market to Hire and with Savannah. It's how do we actually seize this opportunity? And so, we really invested into Google, something that we didn't really do before March, kind of just like test the waters a little bit. But Savannah really came in, and she actually came in to really help us scale our social paid spend. We were scaling from I don't know. Keep in mind that we've only been around for less than a year at that point. We launched in May of 2019, so we were probably scaling from a 5-digit kind of monthly budget to a 6-digit monthly spend. And then we also saw quickly that there's just a huge opportunity on Google. And so Savannah also said, hey, let's do this. Let's give it a try. And literally started that channel from pretty much zero to beating some of the, biggest kind of home brands, like Pottery Barns and the Home Depots of the world, within like 2 months in some of the paid keyword searches, and even beating Wayfair 3 months, after that, which is kind of insane. But that was all because of the strategy that Market to Hire and Savannah has put together for us.
I have chills, by the way. That's to beat out Pottery Barn and Wayfair. That's amazing. So congratulations for pulling in that talent. Would love to know who was in house already, and then if there was any other people beyond Savannah that you brought on, or if there's any other people that you're thinking about bringing on, and what those roles are.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think that's kind of like how we're thinking about marketing at Outer, is that we do have a VP marketing, as I mentioned, Corinne, who has over a decade of digital marketing experience. She straddles both brand and performance marketing, just definitely unicorn talent to have in the first place. And, she's kind of internal from day one. She was employee number 2. But when it comes to execution and, when it comes to specific channels like Facebook and Google, we have the philosophy of just finding the expert, and, they don't necessarily need to be in-house. And that's why we found Market to Hire's model so intriguing. It's because look, like the marketing world is evolving on a, if not on a daily basis, certainly on a weekly and a monthly basis, right? Facebook is undergoing huge shifts right as we speak right now. And we needed the talent to be able to not be in a, kind of like a niche view. If we had that talent in-house, has its own benefits, when it comes to maybe communications and other things, but we needed someone that has a broader view, someone who have worked with other clients, maybe have seen other movements in the market. We have a difficult category in the sense that we do have a very high AOV. Our AOV is about $5,000, so it's not an easy digital marketing task to convert that kind of customer, right? It's a very considered purchase. And so how do you work with someone that have that kind of experience, that have dealt with maybe higher AOV ticket, and stuff like that? And so and then but they probably also have some of the scrappier kind of methodologies for more kind of like first visit conversion. So that kind of varied background and perspective would be really, really helpful for us. So from day one, we've decided to just, own a strategy in house. How do we want to balance brand and performance? But then we want to outsource. It doesn't feel like outsourcing, strangely enough. Like working with Savannah have felt like she's just extension of our team, but with a lot more flexibility and without a lot more, how should I say, like experience that she can bring from other brands, right? And so, yeah, that's our structure.
When you were finding Savannah, just from an efficiency on pulling talent standpoint, it sounds like, I mean, this has been tremendously helpful. Is it that you could put in like, must know how to sell items over $5,000 at AOV $5,000, must know these skills? Like what is that process and how efficient is it?
Honestly, it wasn't that scientific. It was just like Chris is like, Jake, you need to work with her. Trust me. I'm like, okay, like if you say so, Chris.
Yeah. I'll say Jake had a little bit of a different. We do a more structured process for an average customer, but Jake, Jake, like you said, we know each other, so he just said, hey, I need someone great, and I said, great, I actually have someone in mind, and so it was a little different from our usual product, but I think one of the key things, you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, Michelle. I think one of the key things for early stage brands when it comes to talent too, and I'm not saying that this applies to Outer, but it's just sort of a general rule that we find, and I think a lot of brands I think can relate, is, if you're a new company, recruiting is hard, right? And for pretty much any company and pretty much 99% of startups, you can probably get someone. It's easier to get someone great to freelance for you than to convince them to come and join your company full time. For a variety of reasons, right? Like they probably make a ton of money freelancing. They have a lot of options. Like maybe they don't want to work at your company full time, right? And so there's this thing where, again, I'm not saying that's for Outer because I know Savannah loves Jake at all, but just for a lot of companies, like if you just want someone who's an expert to do this job now, that's a different question with a much different and potentially easier answer than I need someone to come and join my company for like 5 years, full-time, in-house, at the salary that my tiny startup can afford. Like that's a very different ask. And I think a lot of people you don't need to conflate the two, and they're realizing that they probably shouldn't. Get the best talent to do the job, and then you're in better shape than hoping to find a great talent who will take your salary and work for your company forever.
Hear that. By the way, someone just said, how booked will Savannah be after this? Which I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, can I hire Savannah? Anyways, so I'd love to actually shift into a few other questions that have come in. One of which was marketing in any form can feel overwhelming for small D2Cs. Obviously, Jake, this is pretty fresh for you. What advice would you give to someone who is just getting started?
So I'm the total novice in this field. I actually don't come from this is the second startup I'm building, but it's a
1,000% growth though. So there you go.
So I think obviously having someone who understands marketing a lot more than I do is very important. So in our case, we do have Corinne, and if you haven't done the marketing topic, would love to invite her to share more of the secret sauce and the tactics. But I think strategically speaking, you know, from day one, we were pretty. I mean, again, like it comes down to what DTC it is, right? I don't think there's like a one size fits all kind of formula. And for us, we thought about this kind of long sales cycle, lower conversion kind of product, and how do we actually find, invest into brand building, top of the funnel awareness, right? Outdoor furniture is not something that you see for the first time. And you're like, oh, okay, I didn't think about this before, but I'm going to spend the $5,000 right now to buy this. In fact, we were also featured on Shark Tank. And that's just a really good example. While a lot of Shark Tank brands would have that direct conversion, like as they're watching the show, right? They just pull up the phone and purchase. For us, we hit a huge traffic spike when it aired, but zero conversion, not until a month later that we started cultivating that leads, because it's a very, very much like a CPL driven, like lead gen driven kind of funnel that we've intentionally built. So I think it's dangerous for me to give like a general advice, say like, hey, DTC, you should do this. But for us, if anybody in the audience is building kind of like a high ticket item, kind of like tougher to convert, I don't know, maybe you're selling cars or houses even, or other kind of furniture or high ticket products. I think that top of the funnel brand building, content is definitely a worthwhile investment. I think one anecdote that I'll mention in the very beginning, and it's related to the photo in my background, is actually from our first photo shoot. Coming from kind of like an enterprise B2B background, and I think at the time we had raised just a little bit under $200,000 from friends and family just to get started. And my head of digital product, who Brett is his name, he's very talented. He came from Nike. He told me, "Oh, we're gonna spend $80,000 on a photo shoot." I'm like, "You're out of your mind. I'm not gonna spend close to 50% of our total capital on a set of photos, right?" But turned out it was the right decision, because that really exuded kind of like the premium feel of the brand in the very beginning, even though it didn't directly leads to conversion right away, just like Shark Tank, but it had kind of like planted the seed in a lot of people's minds. And all it took was to work on some of the mid and lower funnel conversion tactics to convert that leads list. Anyway, that's just to our own experience, and maybe for higher ticket items, D2C brands.
And Chris, this is a question for you. Is there one thing you wish all small startups knew about D2C e-commerce marketing?
One thing that also, I mean, I think that I said a little bit earlier, it is not a like mythical quest. It's a thing that a lot of people have built their careers on already, figured out how to do and do very well, and at all price points. I mean, pre-launch, you can hire marketers, whether it's through us or otherwise. You can hire someone pre-launch, unless you literally have zero money, in which case, like, don't even ask questions. Like, I don't. Good luck. Like, you literally zero money, pound the pavement, go for it. But if you can spend a little bit, don't wring your hands, kind of thinking, well, like, I got to figure it out. It's got to be some secret here. It's not a secret. It's a playbook. As much as Jake kind of, I don't think he's being insincere when he says, hey, there's not one size fit all. There isn't. But he hired, I think you said employee number 2 is Corinne, right, Jake? Right, very early on, a head of marketing with a branding background. He knew what he was doing. He spent a ton of money on a photo shoot, which went against his instincts, but he had people he trusted that had the background in making these kinds of brands successful. And when you have that, the right people who, on paper at least, and in your relationship, feel credible and you can trust them, you can make these decisions. And I think that's one thing for even the early stage D2C brands, like, that is possible. Like, you can get that as long as you have, a few $100, couple $1,000 a month in budget. You can get that for your business. If it's zero, again, a little bit different, but if you got a little bit of spend, you can find someone on a freelance basis who you're like, wow, this person's done this a bunch of times and they're gonna incrementally help me with a little bit of their time. Like, it's doable. So don't kind of sit there, thinking that marketing is just this thing that you may never understand or crack. Like, that's on you at that point. It's a very knowable, doable thing.
That's awesome, by the way, to know that even just a couple $100, because that feels accessible, right? Like, some of these companies, especially right now, I mean, everyone's kind of renegotiating rent and doing different things. Maybe you can reallocate to the extent that you have that in your pocket towards the new venture alongside.
Yeah, exactly right. If we're assuming it's not, again, like, I don't know what's going on with anyone's brand, but I'm assuming it's not a complete zero out. You spend your every last dime on inventory that's in your garage. Like, you got to figure that out for yourself. But if you have a little bit of a marketing budget, again, just key that it's not, and don't cheap out. I mean, if the person, it's very easy, like, have they done this before with success for a company like mine or yours? If they haven't and can't point to it, don't really kind of get in bed there, because that's probably not going to work out that well. If it may feel like cheaping out is the right way to go, but I promise that when you cheap out, you will have a credibility issue. And when the first kind of challenge or hurdle or the campaign doesn't work or whatever it is a little bit of a disagreement maybe in direction, like Jake had. I think, Jake, you said your digital designer was from Nike, right? Like, is Jake gonna argue with the guy from Nike?
Right.
Right? Is Jake gonna argue with the guy who told us, learned from a YouTube course last weekend about photography? Like, Jake's probably like, yeah, I'm not listening to you, right? But the Nike mark designer, like, okay, like, why'd you bring him in if you don't listen to that, right? So I think that's kind of key. You want to have people you can trust and rely on and listen to, even if you disagree. Like, that's the bar that you want to get to, because entrepreneurship is hard enough. If you're doubting the people who are helping you, even if they're cheaper, like, you're just wasting time and money. It's better to pay a little bit more, get someone good, and get things right. It will pay off in the long term for sure.
Agreed. Totally agree. Having, we hired at different stages, and that incremental difference is ROI like through the roof. So could not agree more. Last question on Q&A, and then we have to wrap, unfortunately, because I could spend a lot of time here. Do you, at Marketer Hire, just to get really specific, obviously you helped Jake find Savannah, who sounds like a magician. I mean, she's doing a phenomenal job, right? Can brands who are listening expect that they would have that hands-on experience, especially if they, are in that point, they're like, I have $500 to spend, I have $1,000 to spend. Like, how do I make sure I apply this correctly? Is there somebody who can jump in and?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not sort of saying this because, I mean, I built, I wrote the spec, even though we launched in 2019, I wrote the spec for Marketer Hire in 2012. I've been thinking about this for a long time, while I was running my agency that frankly was just kind of like taking money from whoever to be like, yeah, sure. Like, yes, we'll do SEO. Like, why not? And then find someone else, to backfill later. But yeah, I mean, that's the crux of what we do, and what we do really well and really, better than anyone is we're very specific in how we see roles. We have 40 to 50 specific attributes and skills per role. We don't waver on those. We're constantly, revisiting and say, hey, this is what the market thinks an email marketer does, optional, mandatory, a million things. Here's what email marketers think they do. Here's our worldview on it, and that's what we're going to match. And being rigid about that also allows, any kind of business, whether it's Fortune 500 or early stage, to come to us with really no more than just a goal. Hey, you know what? Like, here's my business, here's the size, here's my budget. What do you think I should do? Like, they can literally just say that, and we become growth managers. Like, we work on essentially marketing operations. Like, that's what you get for free in your consultation with Marketer Hire, specifically because we know that, I mean, the point of this whole webinar is that is a really hard thing right now. People don't know what to hire, how much to hire, or when to hire it, how to even think about what that person is going to cover. Is it 3 people? Is it 1 person? Because depending on your stage and who you have on your team already, it's different answers. And so really what you get from us, and what we spend a lot of time constantly adjusting our viewpoint on, and how we handle it, and how we answer certain questions, is marketing operations, right? Like that, you get that. It's a huge part of our offer and product, again, to help large companies or small companies answer, like, what kind of marketer do I need, or marketers do I need right now in order to achieve X goal? And so as long as you're clear on the goal, and we're not going to even match you unless you are clear on your goal, because we don't want to put our marketers in a situation where they're not going to be successful. That's how we attract the best talent, is we create an environment like for Savannah, whoever, to enjoy their work and have good engagements with their customers and their clients. Because if we're just like loose and fast with like, oh sure, yeah, Savannah will do whatever, blah blah blah, like that's going to be awful. She's not going to enjoy it, not going to do good work, and it's not going to be successful, which ultimately hurts everybody. So we're very specific about making sure that we won't even match you to a marketer unless we've helped you basically clean up everything that we talked about today, right? So if you're not clear on it, like we'll help you get there, and then we'll make the match, because that's going to put our marketers in an environment where they can be successful. So any size, any type, as long as you have, a little bit of money to invest in marketing, a few hundred, few $1,000s a month, you'll be good to go.
By the way, huge breath of fresh air. I feel like I'm already breathing easier on behalf of so many brands that I speak to, and even dear friends that are launching businesses. So this is awesome. Thank you. Where is the best place? And Megan, I know you're operating in the background. So these are all the URLs and email addresses and handles for LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram for Marketer Hire. Outer, check out their website. Definitely get in touch with Chris. Jake, I'm going to make an assumption, but hopefully, it's a fair assumption. You can speak up if not. If you have any other questions about Jake's experience, working with Marketer Hire or anything you talked about today, get in touch as well. This is what it's all about. It's about getting in touch, asking a bunch of questions, leaning on each other, building community. And the point is you're not in here alone. There's people who are a little further down the line who can help. And Chris is obviously, you worked with companies at all stages, sizes, industries. And if you talk to him a little bit more, he can tell you about how he used marketing to get into the World Cup, and into other crazy soccer games. And that's a whole other conversation, but he's a fun guy. So definitely get in touch. Jake, Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks. Yeah, a lot of fun. Happy to answer any other questions you guys have. I'll just send them to the Founder Made folks, and we'll figure it out.
You guys are the best. All right, we're going to talk about upcoming events. So Power Hours. This obviously is Power Hours. So if you like this, we have another one coming up Wednesday, February 24th, 1 to 2 p.m. It will be talking about leveraging top D2C commerce trends to win. Then after that, we have our Future of Beauty and Wellness Summit. It's happening Thursday, March 18th. It's where you can discover the world's most innovative beauty and wellness brands and learn from thought leaders in the space. So definitely sign up for that. And then just following on Thursday, April 29th, the D2C Summit, where we're going to be talking about financing and funding. You'll have thought leaders share exclusive insights, tactical advice, and solutions for D2C financing and funding strategy. You'll hear from partners like Payability and Clearbank and a ton of others that are working with some of our best brands and best partners. So definitely get in touch. And with that, we are going to conclude today's Power Hour. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week. And please get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Take care. And Chris, Jake, we'll be in touch. All right. Bye, Founder Made crew. Thank you. Bye.